Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Driven Wyld. Today we are talking about DoorDash accused of purposely misleading its customers. So recently I got an email from one of my subscribers. BC, thank you so much for emailing me about this and making this video possible. So one of the things that they said was that they need to be a lot more transparent about the fees and everything that goes into your total as a DoorDash customer. And quite frankly, I couldn't agree more, but I do want to hear what is being said about it. So with that said, we are talking about everything that's being discussed in this article, how it actually is for DoorDash, UberEats, and Grubhub drivers and customers, and everything in between. So with that said, let's get started. DoorDash was founded in 2013 by a small group of Stanford students with the idea of helping small businesses with food delivery. Tony Xu, Andy Fang, Stanley Tang, and Evan Moore were so humble when they launched the business, which was originally called Palo Alto Delivery. They then made food deliveries themselves. After getting $120,000 in funding from Y Combinator in trade for a 7% stake in the business, the company renamed itself to DoorDash in 2013 and started on a road that would eventually lead to enormous success. You know, regardless of how most people see food delivery these days, it's always fun to hear about how it got started, because people hate you when you get to the top, but I find it hard to believe that DoorDash was hated in 2013 when it just got started. In fact, I think most people thought it was a cute idea. While DoorDash wasn't the only food delivery business of its type, when it launched, UberEats was also in the space. It eventually eclipsed it, becoming the largest food delivery provider in 2019. That's not entirely accurate. It not only eclipsed Uber Eats, it eclipsed Grubhub, which was the big dog on campus for a long time. It eclipsed Postmates, which was eventually bought out by Uber, and it started acquiring a bunch of other businesses like Caviar and a bunch of other companies. Today, DoorDash holds the largest market share of 67% compared to Uber Eats' 23% per Statistica. The company has also expanded outside of food delivery space, offering everything from flowers to beauty products to pet food. Basically, if you could walk into a store and buy it, DoorDash is willing to bring it to you. That was a fun 3 minutes of history, but let's see what is being said about misleading customers. But now DoorDash is facing claims that it purposely misleads its customers, which could have a serious effect on its reputation as a company if proven true. DoorDash does mislead its customers in a lot of different ways, but remember that lawyers are trying to prove a case, not so much trying to help the customer. At the end of the day, lawyers are a business too. DoorDash faces troubling allegations. The Competition Bureau announced that it filed a lawsuit against DoorDash and its Canadian subsidiary on Monday for a fair practice it calls drip pricing. Drip pricing is a technique in which firms advertise only part of a product's price and reveal other charges later as the customer goes through the buying process per the Federal Trade Commission's description. That's an interesting term. I never heard of that. But isn't that just how it works? Like, you only add certain charges as you go through the process of checkout? Like, I'm not gonna see certain charges until those charges actually apply to the order. One of the charges that you can get hit with is a small order fee. If the order doesn't fit the description that a small order fee would apply to, then it just won't be added. Again, it's the fault of DoorDash for adding those type of tack-on fees, but it's not their fault that it's not showing all of the fees until the very end. Like, there should be a description of when certain fees, like, stop revealing themselves, but that's a stretch, man. That's a real stretch. The lawsuit alleges that DoorDash misleads its customers by advertising lower prices than that are very different by the time the customer makes it to the checkout and fees are tacked on. The company has been engaging in the alleged conduct for those close to a decade, but acquiring nearly $1 billion in mandatory fees from consumers, the Competition Bureau said in a statement. The lawsuit also alleges that DoorDash makes certain fees appear as if they are taxes when they are not. Okay, that latter point's a big deal because then you can't dispute them and you can't say, hey, this doesn't fit the description of what you're saying, so whatever. But at the same time, I don't think they change the value of the items themselves. They just add certain fees that fit the description of what consumers would be paying for. Like again, the small order fee, the regulatory response fee, or other mandatory fees that fit the description of what you want may not actually apply at the time of which you check out. It also asks DoorDash to stop deceptive price and discounting advertising. Stop portraying fees as taxes, pay a penalty, and issue restitution to affected consumers who purchased food and other items through DoorDash's platform. DoorDash does need to issue restitution and pay penalties, but to them, this kind of lawsuit's going to be a business expense to them and not so much like actually paying for what they did, you know what I'm saying? DoorDash gave a statement to the street saying transparency with customers is a top priority at DoorDash. All fees on DoorDash which support the high quality operations of our platform are clearly labeled and disclosed to consumers through the ordering process, including a final review before payment. To be crystal clear, DoorDash does not hide fees from consumers or mislead them in any way. This application is a misguided and excessive attempt to target one of Canada's leading local commerce platforms. It unfairly singles out DoorDash, and we intend to vigorously defend ourselves against these claims. Okay, so that's a bunch of political nonsense, and quite honestly, I'm not surprised that they responded that way. Let me fix this in the real way real quick.
Transparency with customers is a top priority at DoorDash. We aim to be as non-transparent as possible, and we're really upset that you decided to attack us for us trying to take your money. Like, why wouldn't you just accept the regulatory response fees that we keep giving you? Like, just shut up, pussy, and take it like a bitch. This application is only targeting DoorDash. It's not targeting UberEats or Grubhub. Stop being mean to us.
Yeah, that sounds about right. The only other thing I would push back on is that, yes, Uber Eats and Grubhub and all of the other are in Canada at Skip Dishes. And all of the other delivery services need to be held accountable just as much if they do fit that same description. The rest of this article talks about Ticketmaster, so I'm going to skip to the opinion section. This is my opinion. It's worth what you pay for it. None of you pay me. There you go. First off, I love how this article started with a history lesson on DoorDash. I love those little bits. I don't know why. It just always makes me happy. That said, this lawsuit is wildly overdue, and I'm surprised they didn't do this sooner. The only other thing I'm a little surprised on is you're targeting one of Canada's leading local commerce platforms. Is this not a lawsuit taking place in the United States? Like, what is going on with that? I feel like there's something I'm not understanding about the reason they singled out Canada specifically. And also, with these fees, would this even work? How would this work in general? Does the FTC work for all countries or just this one? Or is it because it's a United States company that is serving Canada, that's why the international lawsuit is taking place here? Honestly, I think if this ends up happening though, and they end up paying a settlement, that could cause a very strong downward spiral for them as well. Because think about it like this, Uber Eats and Grubhub would probably also be hit with those lawsuits. And especially dealing with customer fees, they're all cooked. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. If you guys also want to email me about this stuff like this, my email is drivenwyld@gmail.com. Feel free to email me there, and who knows, maybe get a shout out in a video as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. As always, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time.